My name is Charlotte, and what I'm about to share is a moment in my life I'll never forget. It all started with a wedding invitation, which, without me realizing it, would completely change my relationship with my sister. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and tap the bell so you won't miss any of these crazy stories. And I'd love to hear what you think, so drop your thoughts in the comments. I read as many as I can. My sister, Lisa, has always been confident, competitive, and sometimes a little overbearing. Growing up, she always seemed to take the spotlight, and I often felt like I was in the background. I never took it personally, at least. I thought I hadn't, but what happened that day opened my eyes in ways I couldn't have expected. Lisa had just announced her engagement, and our family gathered for a small celebration. I was excited to attend, but the moment I arrived, I felt a strange tension in the air. Lisa and her fiancé, Ryan, were happily mingling, and I tried to slip in quietly. As I approached, Lisa's eyes lit up with a mix of surprise and something sharper. "Oh, you're here? Something special for you too," she said, her tone dripping with that familiar subtle dig. I laughed awkwardly, trying to play it off, but I could feel all eyes on me. And then Ryan, Lisa's fiancé, stepped forward. What he said next completely caught me off guard. With a warm smile, he took my hand and said, "Hello, Your Honor." For a moment, I froze. Everyone in the room was stunned, some chuckled, some just stared in disbelief. Lisa's expression was priceless, shock mixed with a little guilt. I realized instantly that she hadn't expected this at all. Ryan's greeting wasn't just playful, it was a recognition of my professional identity. I'm a junior judge, and this was my first major family gathering where I had the chance to be acknowledged for my work. His simple, respectful gesture filled me with a surge of pride and confidence. I straightened up and smiled. "Hello, Ryan. Nice to see you." Everyone was watching now, curiosity and admiration in their eyes. Lisa might have thought she could steal the moment, but Ryan made it clear that my achievements deserved respect, no matter what. That small acknowledgement boosted my confidence and made me feel truly valued in front of my family. That day, I realized that people often underestimate others simply because they're used to seeing them a certain way. True respect doesn't need to be demanded, it comes naturally when you carry yourself with integrity and professionalism. Ryan's gesture became a turning point for me, and I silently promised myself that I would never hide my accomplishments again. Later, when things had calmed down a bit, Lisa pulled me aside. You've really grown confident," she said quietly. I smiled. "I just know my worth now." That brief exchange gave me a quiet sense of satisfaction, because I knew this was only the beginning. As the event went on, I kept observing Lisa and Ryan. Ryan's genuine respect showed me that professionalism and authenticity are far more powerful than jealousy or competition. I also realized that envy will always exist, but the way we value and present ourselves is what truly matters. That simple "Your Honor" taught me a lesson I'll never forget. Standing tall quietly can speak louder than words. This was just the start of a family dynamic that was about to get even more complicated. Lisa carried a hint of insecurity, and Ryan handled it with subtle grace, leaving everyone else watching. For the first time, I felt like I had truly stood up for myself. Even after Ryan's unexpected greeting, the room slowly started to settle into casual conversation. I could feel Lisa's eyes on me, flicking every so often with that mix of irritation and disbelief. It was obvious she hadn't expected me to command attention, and honestly, it felt empowering. As people chatted and laughed, I found myself near the dessert table, trying to grab a bite and collect my thoughts. That's when Ryan came over again, this time with a reassuring smile. "You handled that moment beautifully," he said quietly. Not everyone would have stayed composed. I couldn't help but smile back. His words weren't just polite, they were genuine, and in that moment, I realized how much respect he had for me, not just as his fiancé's sister-in-law, but as a professional and as a person. I felt an unexpected warmth, as if he saw me the way I wanted my family to see me. Meanwhile, Lisa had excused herself and disappeared into a corner, probably fuming silently. I overheard her speaking to one of our cousins in a hushed but frustrated tone. "I can't believe she just stood there like she owns the place." I didn't need to hear anything more. Her words confirmed what I already knew. My presence had shifted the dynamics, and for the first time, I wasn't the invisible sister. As the evening went on, other relatives started approaching me. A few congratulated me on my career, others were genuinely curious about my experiences. It was astonishing how one simple acknowledgement from Ryan had changed the way people looked at me. I could feel the subtle respect in the room, and it was addictive in the best possible way. Lisa, however, wasn't done. Later, she came over with a forced smile, trying to mask her irritation. "So, Your Honor," she said in a tone that was somewhere between teasing and challenging. "Did you practice that in front of the mirror?" I looked at her calmly, smiled, and replied, "No need to practice. Confidence comes naturally when you know your worth." The room went quiet for a moment, and I could see a few relatives exchanging impressed glances. Lisa's face flushed slightly, a mix of embarrassment and something else I couldn't quite place. Ryan, who had been standing nearby, gave me a subtle nod of approval, as if to silently say, "You've got this." That tiny gesture gave me the courage to continue holding my ground. I realized that this evening was more than a family gathering. It was a subtle battleground of respect, perceptions, and boundaries. By the time dinner was over, it was clear that Lisa's influence over the room had diminished. Her fiancé, Ryan, continued to treat me with a level of courtesy and admiration that was hard to ignore. It wasn't just polite recognition, it was a deliberate act of respect, and everyone noticed. Later, as the family started leaving, Lisa came to me again, softer this time. I didn't expect everyone to react like this," she admitted, almost reluctantly. I gave her a small, measured smile. "It's not about them reacting, it's about me standing in my own truth." That night, as I drove home, I reflected on everything that had happened. For so long, I had let my sister's shadow define how I saw myself. But today, with a simple greeting from Ryan and a few meaningful interactions, I finally understood something important. I didn't need anyone's approval to know my value. And in that realization, a quiet strength began to grow inside me. I knew this was only the beginning. There were more challenges ahead, especially with Lisa still struggling to accept me fully. But for the first time, I felt ready. Ready to hold my head high, ready to be seen and respected, and ready to handle whatever came next with grace. The evening had started as a typical family gathering, but it ended as a turning point for me. I had learned that respect, once earned, can't be ignored even by those closest to you. And from that night on, I knew my relationship with Lisa, and the way she viewed me, was never going to be the same again. The days following the engagement party were a strange mix of excitement and tension. I could feel Lisa's annoyance lingering, even though she tried to act normal around me. At first, I thought maybe it was just temporary, but it quickly became clear that my presence was continuing to challenge her in ways she hadn't expected. The next family gathering was at Lisa's house. She had invited a few close friends and relatives over for drinks and snacks, and of course, Ryan was there too. I arrived early, giving myself time to settle in before the crowd arrived. Even in casual settings, I noticed how subtly people's attitudes toward me had shifted. I wasn't just the younger sister anymore. I had an identity, a presence, and apparently, a reputation. Lisa greeted me at the door, her smile slightly forced. "Charlotte," she said, a little too sweetly. "Glad you could make it." I smiled back politely, keeping my tone neutral. "Wouldn't miss it." The first few minutes were light, small talk and polite laughter, but I could sense Lisa's frustration bubbling just beneath the surface. Every time I contributed to a conversation, she would throw a sideways glance or a thinly veiled remark. But I didn't let it bother me. I had learned how to stand my ground, and this was the perfect chance to do it without drama. Ryan, as always, noticed. He subtly moved closer whenever Lisa tried to sideline me, ensuring I wasn't ignored. At one point, while everyone was talking about recent work projects, he quietly leaned over and said, "Go ahead, Charlotte. Tell them about your latest case." His tone wasn't just encouraging, it was almost protective. I took a deep breath and shared the story, calmly explaining the details. Everyone listened attentively, genuinely impressed, and I could see Lisa's jaw tighten with every word. It became more than just storytelling. It was a quiet power play. I wasn't trying to compete, but by simply being myself and speaking confidently, I was commanding respect without even realizing it. Ryan's subtle support made all the difference, allowing me to shine without seeming like I was trying to outdo anyone. Later, as the night progressed, Lisa's frustration grew harder to hide. At one point, she muttered under her breath, loud enough for me to hear, "I don't know why she has to make everything about herself." I calmly replied, loud enough for her to hear clearly, "I'm not making anything about myself. I'm just being me." That line, simple and quiet, changed the tone of the room. Conversations paused momentarily, and I could feel people looking at Lisa, noticing the contrast. The subtle shift in attention wasn't something I had planned, but it felt satisfying in a way I hadn't anticipated. Ryan's respect never wavered. When Lisa tried to interrupt or downplay my contributions, he would politely redirect the conversation back to me, reinforcing my presence without causing any scene. It was remarkable how one person's quiet acknowledgement could completely alter family dynamics. By the end of the evening, I had the sense that something had shifted permanently. Lisa wasn't used to being challenged, not directly, and certainly not in a way that didn't involve yelling or confrontation. But I had done it effortlessly. Standing there, sharing my work, being acknowledged, and seeing Ryan's subtle support, I realized that I was no longer invisible. I wasn't just Lisa's sister, I was Charlotte, and that mattered. As I left that night, I caught Lisa looking at me with a mix of frustration and something that almost looked like grudging respect. It was a small victory, but it mattered. I knew that our relationship wasn't going to revert back to the old dynamics. She couldn't unsee the confidence I now carried, nor the respect I had earned from those around her. Driving home, I felt a strange sense of calm. For years, I had allowed Lisa's shadow to define me, and for the first time, I was stepping out of it on my own terms. The journey wasn't over, there were still moments ahead that would test my patience and my confidence, but I felt ready. Ready to face Lisa, ready to face the family, and most importantly, ready to stand tall as myself. That night marked a turning point. It wasn't dramatic or loud, but the shift was unmistakable. Respect, once earned, has a way of lingering, and I could already feel it taking root. From here on, nothing about my presence would be taken for granted, especially by my sister. A few weeks later, Lisa invited the whole family over for a small brunch to celebrate some of Ryan's work achievements. I knew it would be another test of patience, another subtle battlefield where old dynamics and hidden tensions could surface, but this time, I felt more prepared. As soon as I arrived, I noticed the glances. Lisa tried to smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. She was clearly still unsettled by how much attention I had started to receive. I took a deep breath and reminded myself that nothing she thought could diminish the confidence I had worked to build. The brunch started casually, with everyone chatting about work, travel, and weekend plans. I was just about to sit down when Ryan walked over and greeted me with a warm smile. "Charlotte, great to see you again. Your presence really makes these gatherings brighter." His words, again, weren't just polite, they were genuine and reaffirmed the growing respect he had for me. I felt a quiet satisfaction, realizing that not everyone in the room needed to be convinced. Some people simply recognized what mattered. Lisa tried to interrupt one of my conversations with a distant cousin, making a joke that was clearly meant to belittle me. I simply smiled and kept talking, maintaining my composure. To my surprise, the cousin leaned in slightly, showing genuine interest in what I was saying. It wasn't long before other relatives joined in, listening attentively. Lisa's little attempt to distract everyone quietly backfired. Later, when Ryan raised a toast to celebrate his latest promotion, he made a subtle mention of me. And of course, I can't forget my future sister-in-law, Charlotte, who inspires all of us with her dedication and professionalism. Everyone looked at me, some nodding, some clapping lightly, and even Lisa froze for a moment, caught between pride and irritation. It was a defining moment. For years, Lisa had unconsciously been the center of attention in the family. But now, quietly, respectfully, and without any grand gesture, I had claimed my space. The respect I had earned wasn't forced, it was recognized by those who mattered, and it was undeniable. As the brunch continued, I noticed how my sister's behavior became more defensive. Every comment, every word from me seemed to unsettle her, while Ryan's subtle support continued to reinforce my presence. I wasn't trying to compete, but it felt empowering to realize that simply being authentic and confident could shift perceptions so dramatically. At one point, Lisa came over and tried again, softer this time. "Charlotte, you really do stand out now, don't you?" I smiled gently. "I'm just being myself. That's all it takes." She looked at me, a mix of grudging respect and frustration, realizing she couldn't undermine what I had quietly built. By the end of the brunch, the atmosphere had subtly shifted. Lisa's influence over the room had diminished, and my presence had gained undeniable weight. The way Ryan acknowledged me, and the way family members responded, had quietly redrawn the boundaries of respect. Driving home later, I reflected on the day. Every gathering, every subtle acknowledgement, every quiet moment of respect was stacking up. It wasn't dramatic or confrontational, but the impact was real. For the first time, I felt that my family truly saw me, not just as Lisa's sister, but as Charlotte, someone worthy of attention, recognition, and respect. This brunch had confirmed something important: standing firm, being authentic, and accepting respect when it's offered can quietly transform relationships. Lisa was still coming to terms with it, but I was ready. I felt stronger, more confident, and completely certain that I wouldn't shrink into the background ever again. Little did I know, the challenges weren't over. Lisa's insecurities would resurface in ways I hadn't anticipated, and the next family event would push me further. But by now, I knew I had learned a vital lesson: respect, once earned, cannot easily be ignored. A few weeks after the brunch, Lisa organized a family game night at her house. She had invited all the cousins, aunts, and uncles, and of course, Ryan was there too. I knew this evening could be tricky. Games and competition often brought out people's true colors, but I was determined to remain composed. From the moment I walked in, I could feel Lisa's eyes following me. Her forced smile didn't fool anyone. It was obvious she was still struggling with the shift in attention and respect I had quietly claimed over the past few weeks. But this time, I didn't let it affect me. I smiled, greeted everyone, and made my way to join the group. The games began, and as expected, Lisa tried to subtly undermine me. A playful challenge here, a sarcastic comment there. But instead of reacting, I stayed calm and focused. I noticed Ryan giving me quick glances and small supportive gestures, silently cheering me on. It was reassuring, and I could feel my confidence growing even more. During one round, we were paired off for a team challenge, and Lisa was visibly annoyed that I was partnered with Ryan. She shot him a questioning look, probably expecting him to dismiss me, but he didn't. Instead, he smiled warmly at me and whispered, "Let's show them what we've got." That simple act of support made me feel unstoppable. As the game continued, my team started winning round after round. I wasn't showing off or trying to dominate. I was simply participating fully and playing strategically. Everyone began to notice, and murmurs of admiration started spreading through the group. Lisa, on the other hand, grew more and more frustrated. She had always been the competitive one, the center of attention, but tonight, I was holding my own, and no one could deny it. At one point, Lisa muttered under her breath, thinking I wouldn't hear, "Why does she always have to be perfect?" I paused for a moment, looked at her calmly, and said clearly, "I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm just being myself." The room went silent for a beat, and then a few people nodded, acknowledging the truth of my words. Lisa froze, realizing she had been subtly challenged, and she couldn't ignore it. Ryan leaned over and whispered, "You're doing amazing, Charlotte. Keep going." His quiet support gave me the courage to keep playing confidently, without feeling guilty for taking up space. It was incredible how one person's acknowledgement could make such a huge difference in your mindset. By the end of the night, it was clear that the family dynamics had shifted yet again. Lisa wasn't used to being overshadowed, especially not by her own sister, but there was nothing she could do to reverse the growing respect and admiration for me. I had claimed my space, not by confrontation or argument, but simply by showing up, staying composed, and embracing my own worth. After everyone left, Lisa approached me privately. Her expression was a mixture of frustration and reluctant admiration. "Charlotte, I guess I didn't realize how much people respect you," she said softly. I smiled politely. "It's not about what people think, Lisa. It's about being confident in who you are." That night, as I walked home, I reflected on how much had changed in such a short time. Over the past few weeks, one simple acknowledgement, a few small gestures of support, and my own quiet confidence had completely altered how my family saw me. For the first time, I truly felt seen, respected, and valued, not just as Lisa's sister, but as Charlotte, an individual who deserved recognition. And I knew the best part. This was only the beginning. Lisa's jealousy and insecurity might flare up again, but I had learned a lesson that night I would carry forever. True confidence isn't about winning every game or proving anything. It's about standing tall, staying true to yourself, and allowing respect to follow naturally. A few weeks after the game night, Lisa announced another family gathering, a more formal one this time, intended to celebrate Ryan's recent promotion. I knew this event would be different. It wasn't just casual fun anymore. There would be extended family, friends from work, and even a few of Ryan's colleagues I hadn't met before. It was the perfect stage to see how far the dynamics had shifted since the engagement announcement. I prepared carefully that day, not because I wanted to impress anyone unnecessarily, but because I wanted to show up as the version of myself I had grown into over the past few months, confident, calm, and unapologetically professional. I wore a simple, elegant dress, kept my hair neat, and carried myself with the posture I had learned to own. It felt empowering to walk in knowing I wasn't there to compete, just to exist in my own space fully. From the moment I arrived, I could feel the subtle tension in the air. Lisa tried her usual tactic, a bright, almost exaggerated smile, and greeted me with, "Charlotte. So glad you could make it." Her tone was polite, but her eyes betrayed the internal struggle. She was clearly still coming to terms with the fact that I wasn't the quiet, background sister she had always been used to. I smiled back warmly. Of course, wouldn't miss it. Simple words, but said with the confidence I had developed over the past weeks. The living room slowly filled with people. Ryan's colleagues, some of whom I hadn't met before, immediately greeted me. To my pleasant surprise, many already knew who I was through casual mentions from Ryan. He had spoken about me as a judge, about my work, and about how much he respected my dedication. Their warm smiles and polite nods reinforced the sense that my professional achievements were recognized even outside of my family circle. Lisa hovered nearby, watching me carefully. I could see her trying to anticipate how I would act, probably hoping for some sign of vulnerability she could exploit. But I wasn't nervous anymore. Each interaction felt natural, each conversation calm and controlled. I had learned that true confidence wasn't loud or confrontational. It was simply being present, owning your space, and letting respect follow naturally. The evening began with light conversations and small introductions. At first, everything seemed polite and ordinary, but it didn't take long for the subtle shift in attention to become evident. People were genuinely curious about me, asking about my work, my recent cases, and even my hobbies. For years, I had often been overlooked in such gatherings, but now, I found myself actively engaging and sharing stories that sparked interest and admiration. Lisa's frustration was visible in small gestures, tightened jaw, brief huffs, and occasional eye rolls, but nothing overt. It was almost amusing how she had learned over these past weeks that subtlety couldn't always shield her from reality. Then came the moment that would forever mark this evening in my memory. Ryan had asked me to join him in welcoming his colleagues and their partners. As I approached the group, one of his senior coworkers, a distinguished gentleman I had never met, extended his hand and said with a warm smile, "It's an honor to meet you, Your Honor." I felt my heart skip a beat. The phrase, spoken sincerely, without any pretense, was a recognition of my work and my accomplishments. The room seemed to pause for a moment, with a few heads turning to take in the interaction. Lisa's expression shifted immediately. I saw a mix of shock, embarrassment, and something that looked remarkably like awe. She had never expected me to be recognized in such a formal and public way, and she couldn't hide it. I shook the gentleman's hand firmly, smiled, and replied, "Thank you. It's a pleasure to meet you as well." His acknowledgement, combined with the supportive glances from Ryan, gave me a quiet but profound sense of validation. For years, I had questioned whether my work and my dedication truly mattered in the eyes of those around me. That simple, sincere greeting erased every doubt. As the evening progressed, more interactions followed in a similar tone. People were genuinely interested in who I was, and my stories about work, life, and small victories garnered sincere attention. I noticed Lisa trying a few times to interrupt or redirect conversations toward herself, but it no longer worked. I had learned to navigate these situations with poise, responding politely but firmly, and letting the attention naturally gravitate toward mutual respect rather than forced focus. At one point, as everyone gathered in the living room for a toast to Ryan's promotion, he raised his glass and said, "I want to take a moment to recognize someone very special, my future sister-in-law, Charlotte. Not only for her accomplishments as a judge, but for the grace, integrity, and confidence she brings into every room she enters." The room erupted in applause. I felt warmth rising in my chest. People were smiling, nodding, genuinely acknowledging my achievements, and for the first time, I felt completely secure in my own identity within this family dynamic. Lisa's face turned a shade paler. She looked at me, then at Ryan, and finally at the room, realizing the undeniable shift that had occurred. It was in that moment, with the attention of the entire gathering on me, that I fully understood the power of quiet confidence, of authentic recognition, and of being unapologetically yourself. I wasn't just Lisa's sister anymore, I was Charlotte. And my accomplishments, my professionalism, and my identity could not be dismissed or undermined. After the toast, small groups formed, and conversations continued. Lisa attempted a few subtle comments, trying to regain the spotlight or belittle me in passing, but the effect was minimal. I stayed composed, smiling gently, contributing thoughtfully, and engaging with everyone equally. Each interaction reinforced my presence and the respect I had earned, not just through words, but through my demeanor and actions. Towards the end of the evening, Lisa finally approached me alone. Her expression was complicated, frustration, disbelief, and the beginnings of grudging respect all mingled together. "Charlotte, I didn't realize," she started, her voice trailing off. I smiled softly, gently, but without condescension. "You don't have to realize, Lisa. I'm just standing as myself. That's all it takes." She paused, clearly reflecting on the past few months, the engagement party, the brunch, the game night, and now this formal gathering. Each moment had quietly reinforced my presence and my identity, and she had no choice but to acknowledge it. She nodded slightly, a silent admission that things between us had changed, permanently. As the guests left and the evening drew to a close, I walked to the car feeling a mix of relief, pride, and calm satisfaction. For the first time in my life, I had fully stepped out of the shadow of my sister's expectations and insecurities. I had earned respect not through confrontation or dramatics, but through authenticity, professionalism, and quiet confidence. That night, I reflected on the journey, the initial engagement party, Ryan's unexpected and respectful greeting, the small victories at brunch and game night, and finally, this gathering. Each step had been a lesson in patience, self-assurance, and the subtle power of being unapologetically yourself. Lisa might continue to struggle with her insecurities, but I no longer allowed them to define me. By the time I got home, I felt a profound sense of closure and empowerment. I had faced the moments that could have intimidated or embarrassed me, and instead, I had turned them into milestones of personal growth. Respect had been earned, confidence had been solidified, and relationships had subtly but unmistakably shifted. That evening marked not just the culmination of a few weeks of family dynamics, but a turning point in my own life. I had discovered that recognition and respect often come quietly, through consistent presence, authenticity, and self-assurance. And perhaps most importantly, I realized that no matter what anyone else thought or how they tried to manipulate the situation, I could define my own worth, and no one could take that away. From that night forward, my relationship with Lisa changed. While old habits and insecurities didn't vanish overnight, there was an unspoken acknowledgement between us. She had seen me, really seen me, and she could no longer dismiss my achievements or my confidence. And as for me, I walked away with a sense of empowerment I had never felt before, a calm certainty that my presence, my professionalism, and my self-respect were undeniable, and that nothing could diminish them.